Have you ever stopped to wonder why the worst people, the ones who are ruthless, manipulative, and downright unethical, seem to always come out on top? It's a question we all find ourselves asking, especially when we see someone who seems to lie, cheat, and climb over others to reach the top. These are the individuals who do whatever it takes to succeed, no matter the cost, and somehow they always manage to win. You know the type. The ones who will betray, deceive, and step on anyone in their way. And it's hard not to feel that sting of frustration when they get exactly what they want, even at the expense of others. So, how is it that these people thrive, while the ones who try to play by the rules seem to struggle? This isn't just a modern issue. It's been happening for centuries. And one of the most well-known figures to reflect on this is Niccolò Machiavelli. In his writings, particularly in The Prince, Machiavelli revealed some harsh, uncomfortable truths about power and success that can help explain why the worst people often rise to the top. He's famous for saying that in order to succeed, you've got to be willing to do anything. Yes, anything. Even if that includes manipulation, deceit, and betrayal. His ideas are controversial, especially when we talk about morals and ethics. But here's the thing, whether we like it or not, Machiavelli's words have stood the test of time. And they still ring true in the world we live in today. So in this video, we're going to dive deep into why Machiavelli's thoughts on power and success still hold weight today. We'll look at why playing by the rules doesn't always get you ahead, why ruthless people sometimes seem to have the winning hand, and, yeah, we're going to face it, what we can learn from them. But don't worry, this isn't a how-to on becoming a villain. We're not here to encourage unethical behavior. We're just peeling back the layers of truth about power, success, and how people get to where they are. Let's get into it. To really understand why some of the worst people seem to thrive, we need to look back at one of history's most controversial figures, Niccolò Machiavelli. Born in 1469 in Renaissance Italy, Machiavelli was a diplomat, philosopher, and writer. But it's his most famous work, The Prince, that's made him a name that still sparks debates today. So what exactly did Machiavelli teach us? What can his ideas about power, control, and success tell us about the world we live in now? The nature of power. Machiavelli didn't waste time with feel-good ideas or pretty pictures of the world. He was blunt, and he didn't hide from uncomfortable truths. When it came to power, Machiavelli didn't think there was any room for sentimentality or high ideals. Power was the one thing that mattered most. To him, power wasn't just something you grabbed for, it was the very lifeblood of life itself. And in order to gain it, and even more importantly, keep it, you had to do whatever was necessary. You see, for him, the ends justified the means. That means, as long as you achieve your goal, whether that goal is personal success, a strong rule, or even a prosperous state, the way you get there doesn't matter as much. He wasn't interested in ideas about morality or ethics. Instead, he was obsessed with what works. Now let's put this in context. During his time, there were many philosophers preaching the importance of virtue, ethics, and doing the right thing. They emphasized morals, kindness, and honor as the foundation of leadership. Machiavelli didn't buy into that. He wasn't focused on creating the ideal leader. He was interested in the real leaders, the ones who could hold on to power in a world that was unpredictable and cruel. Machiavelli's message was clear. If you wanted to rise to the top, you had to think like a winner, not like a saint. The art of manipulation. One of the most famous and often most criticized aspects of Machiavelli's philosophy is his advice on manipulation. You may have heard the term Machiavellian used in a negative sense, and for good reason. Machiavelli argued that a leader must be willing to deceive, manipulate, and even betray others if it means achieving their goals. According to him, leaders who are too honest, too trusting, or too compassionate risk showing weakness. And weakness, in his world, was the quickest way to lose power. That's why he believed it was better to be feared than loved. Love, he argued, can fade, but fear? Fear sticks with people. Fear is powerful, and if people fear you, they're less likely to challenge you and more likely to follow your lead. But here's the thing, this isn't just about politics or rulers. This concept of manipulation plays out every single day, in the smallest of ways, in the workplace, in friendships, and in personal relationships. You might see someone you know using manipulative tactics to get ahead, or maybe you've witnessed others climbing the corporate ladder using charm, persuasion, and subtle manipulation. While it might not be the most ethical approach, it works. So when you see people use manipulative strategies to succeed, remember, they're probably tapping into these Machiavellian ideas. They might not be playing fair, but often they're playing to win. The use of cruelty and deception. Machiavelli's advice on cruelty is one of the most controversial parts of his philosophy. It's not easy to swallow, especially for those of us who believe in kindness and fairness. But Machiavelli didn't back down from his ideas. He argued that cruelty, when used strategically and in moderation, could actually be a powerful tool for maintaining control and power. He wasn't promoting mindless cruelty or random violence, though. Instead, he believed that a ruler should use cruelty in a controlled, calculated way. If cruelty is used correctly, it can instill fear and obedience in others. This, in turn, helps to maintain order. The goal wasn't to inspire hatred, but rather to make people fear the consequences of rebellion, and thus ensure that control remains in the hands of the ruler. Again, this isn't about justifying cruelty. It's about understanding that sometimes, to stay in control, hard choices need to be made. And yes, those choices can sometimes look ruthless, but they often result in success. The people who are willing to make these tough, uncomfortable decisions are often the ones who rise to the top, while others who hesitate or try to play nice fall behind. Fortune and virtue. Another critical part of Machiavelli's philosophy revolves around the concept of virtue. Now let's be clear, virtue isn't about being virtuous in a moral sense. It's not about doing the right thing. Instead, it's about having the ability, wisdom, and resourcefulness to seize opportunities, overcome challenges, and shape your own destiny. In other words, virtue is a mix of courage, intelligence, timing, and strategic thinking. It's the kind of skill that allows someone to rise above obstacles and manipulate their environment to their advantage. Think of it as having the right skills to make the most of every situation, whether it's a good one or a bad one. But even with all this control, Machiavelli still recognized that fate or fortuna plays a role. Fortuna is like luck or chance. But here's where his ideas take an interesting turn. He believed that you couldn't fully control luck, but you could shape how it affected you. A true master, in his eyes, is someone who can turn even the worst luck into a victory. And sometimes, those who thrive in the harshest conditions are the ones who know how to manipulate the hand they've been dealt. Real-world examples. Let's look at some real-world examples of people who followed Machiavelli's principles, people who thrived through manipulation, strategic alliances, and ruthless actions. Cesare Borgia. One person who Machiavelli admired was Cesare Borgia, the son of Pope Alexander VI. Borgia's rise to power was marked by manipulation, cruelty, and cunning strategies. He made alliances with powerful figures, used violence when necessary, and deceived others to achieve his goals. His story embodies Machiavellian tactics and shows just how far ruthless ambition can take someone. Napoleon Bonaparte. Another prime example of a Machiavellian figure is Napoleon Bonaparte. Known for his ambitious nature, Napoleon rose to power through war, alliances, and manipulation. He inspired both loyalty and fear, using those emotions to maintain his rule. Napoleon's strategic mind and ruthless actions helped him become one of the most powerful men in history. In today's world, we still see politicians using Machiavellian tactics. Whether through charm, persuasion, or even deception, many modern political figures climb to the top by bending the rules, making strategic alliances, and doing whatever it takes to secure power. In business, CEOs and corporate leaders also adopt similar approaches. They manipulate situations, form strategic partnerships, and sometimes use ruthless tactics to stay ahead of the competition. This isn't to say that all successful business people are Machiavellian, but it's clear that these methods are sometimes what it takes to get ahead in highly competitive environments. So why does all of this matter in today's world? Why should we care about Machiavelli's teachings? Well, in a way, it helps us understand why some of the worst people seem to rise to the top. Those who are willing to bend or break the rules seem to win. It's not necessarily about being good or moral. It's about understanding the dynamics of power, influence, and control. The people who thrive are often those who know how to play the game, regardless of how they get there. We're not saying you should start being manipulative or cruel, but it's important to understand the rules of power and to see that sometimes success isn't about being virtuous. It's about being strategic. So let's learn from Machiavelli's insights, not just to understand the world around us, but also to become more aware of the power dynamics at play in our own lives. By knowing the game, we can play it better without losing our own sense of self along the way. Why morality doesn't always equal success. Now, let's take a hard look at a disturbing truth that many of us refuse to acknowledge. In the real world, morality doesn't always guarantee success. This is one of the toughest lessons from Machiavelli's philosophy. When we think of good people, we often imagine those who play by the rules, who are fair, kind, and just. These individuals care about doing things the right way, even if it costs them. But the truth is, being morally upright doesn't necessarily lead to winning. In fact, it might even hold you back. The good guy syndrome. When we think of a good person, we might picture someone who follows all the rules, treats others with respect, and is honest in their dealings. These people are often seen as the pillars of society, the ones who should naturally rise to the top. But the reality is, these individuals often don't get ahead in the same way that others might. Why? Because, in many cases, the good guy doesn't make waves. They stay in their lane, they don't take risks, and they don't push the boundaries. The good guy often lacks the aggressiveness, ambition, and ruthlessness needed to outmaneuver those who are less concerned about moral guidelines. While this may sound harsh, it's the truth. If you're too focused on being good, you're more likely to be walked over by those who will do anything to achieve their goals. Because, on the other side of the coin, you have people who play by Machiavellian principles. These are the people who aren't afraid to use manipulation, deceit, and even betrayal to get ahead. They take advantage of opportunities without thinking too much about the consequences. We see this in politics, where leaders make promises they know they can't keep, or in business, where individuals engage in shady practices like insider trading or underhanded marketing tactics to gain an edge. While these actions may seem morally wrong, the individuals who engage in them often come out on top. They make the money, they win the election, and they secure the power they crave. This is because ruthless people understand that success often requires taking what's needed, when it's needed, and doing whatever it takes to survive. In a world where power is always in flux and enemies are constantly trying to undermine each other, being too lenient can lead to weakness. On the flip side, a leader who is tough, decisive, and willing to make the hard calls often commands respect, or at least fear, and is in a better position to retain power. The case of successful tyrants. One of the clearest examples of the triumph of ruthless people is in the world of dictators and tyrants. Think about leaders like Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, or other figures throughout history who rose to power through manipulation, brutality, and disregard for human life. While these men were undoubtedly evil, they were also strategic. They understood the importance of controlling power, intimidating opponents, and using any means necessary to secure their position. These tyrants didn't thrive because they were good. They thrived because they were willing to be as ruthless and calculating as necessary to stay in power. They weren't constrained by morality. Instead, they viewed morality as a tool to be manipulated for their own gain. In their world, morality didn't hold them back. It was a weapon they wielded to maintain their dominance. Fast forward to modern society, and we see similar patterns playing out. Look at tech giants like Steve Jobs, who could be incredibly ruthless in his dealings. Jobs was notorious for pushing his team beyond their limits, sometimes disregarding their well-being for the sake of innovation. Yet, this ruthless determination helped propel Apple to the top. Jobs understood that success required sacrifices, and not always the good kind of sacrifices. Another example comes from the political world. Presidents and world leaders who act swiftly, decisively, and sometimes with morally questionable actions often end up making big waves on the global stage. One key concept here is moral disengagement. This is the ability to turn off or disengage from your sense of moral responsibility in certain situations. By disconnecting from their moral compass, individuals are able to perform actions they would normally deem wrong, all in the name of success. Success was about understanding what worked, what didn't, and what needed to be done to maintain power, even if it meant throwing morality out the window. At the core of many ruthless actions is the desire for power. People who are willing to do anything to get ahead often have an overwhelming need for control. Control over others, control over situations, and control over their own destiny. Power can give them the security they crave, the status they desire, and the ability to shape the world according to their own vision. For these individuals, power is everything. Without it, they feel vulnerable and exposed. The more power they have, the less they have to rely on others, and the more influence they can exert over their environment. To them, it's simply the way the world works. If they don't take control, someone else will. And they aren't willing to let someone else win, especially if it means giving up their power. The fear of losing. Another driving force behind ruthless behavior is the fear of losing. People who are intensely competitive and obsessed with success tend to view every situation as a battle for survival. Losing isn't just an option for them. It's a personal failure, a threat to their sense of identity, and a reminder that the world is constantly changing in ways they can't control. To these individuals, winning isn't just about achieving something, it's about ensuring their own security. Losing means vulnerability, weakness, and a loss of status. The fear of losing, therefore, becomes a powerful motivator. They're willing to sacrifice anything, including their own morals. This fear is often exaggerated in highly competitive environments like politics, business, or entertainment, where the stakes are incredibly high. When every decision could mean the difference between success and failure, it becomes easier to justify ruthless actions, even when they go against personal ethics. Narcissism and self-justification. Another psychological factor that often fuels ruthless behavior is narcissism, a personality trait marked by a strong sense of self-importance, a need for admiration, and a lack of empathy for others. Narcissistic individuals tend to see themselves as deserving of special treatment, and they often feel entitled to success. When things don't go their way, they may resort to manipulation, lying, or other ruthless strategies to get what they feel they deserve. These individuals have a tendency to dehumanize others in order to justify their actions. By viewing other people as obstacles or tools to be used rather than as equals, they can rationalize doing whatever is necessary to overcome them. For example, a narcissist might see stepping on someone else's career as just a part of the game, not an unethical move. To them, it's not personal. It's about their success, their survival, and their image. This mindset allows them to continue to make ruthless decisions without feeling the burden of guilt or remorse. They simply justify their actions by telling themselves that they're entitled to success and that the ends justify the means. Cognitive dissonance and moral rationalization. A powerful psychological tool used by ruthless individuals is cognitive dissonance. Cognitive dissonance occurs when a person experiences mental discomfort because their actions contradict their beliefs or values. Rather than feeling bad about their actions, individuals will often rationalize their behavior to make it more acceptable to their conscience. For example, a person who has just lied, manipulated, or betrayed someone might feel uncomfortable about it at first. But over time, they can convince themselves that their actions were justified. They might tell themselves that everyone else is doing it, that the person they harmed deserved it, or that they needed to act in this way to secure their future. This rationalization helps them deal with the discomfort of their actions and allows them to move forward without feeling the weight of their moral contradictions. This process of moral disengagement is critical to maintaining their success without succumbing to feelings of guilt. A central aspect of Machiavelli's philosophy is the idea that the ends justify the means. In this view, the ultimate goal, whether it's power, success, wealth, or survival, is so important that it makes any action taken to achieve it acceptable, no matter how brutal or unethical. This mentality is deeply ingrained in the mindset of ruthless individuals who believe that the rewards of success outweigh the costs of their actions. They don't see their ruthlessness as a moral failing, they see it as an effective way to reach their desired outcome. Whether it's breaking the rules, betraying allies, or using underhanded tactics, the end goal always takes precedence. This mentality can lead to extraordinary achievements, but it often comes at a heavy price. It isolates these individuals from others, alienates potential allies, and creates an environment of fear and distrust. Yet, as Machiavelli would argue, as long as the goal is achieved, the price is worth paying. Psychopathy and sociopathy. In extreme cases, the ruthless behavior we're discussing can be attributed to psychopathy or sociopathy. These are personality disorders characterized by a lack of empathy, remorse, or regard for social norms. Psychopaths and sociopaths are often charming and charismatic, which allows them to manipulate others into following their lead. They don't experience the emotional consequences that most people would feel after betraying or harming others. Instead, they act purely out of self-interest, with no concern for the well-being of others. This makes them particularly dangerous in environments where manipulation and ruthlessness are rewarded. In business, politics, or other high-stakes arenas, individuals with psychopathic or sociopathic tendencies are often able to climb the ranks quickly. Their ability to remain detached from emotions, coupled with their willingness to do whatever it takes to succeed, allows them to thrive while others falter. In summary, ruthlessness isn't just a matter of strategy. It's deeply embedded in the psychology of those who thrive through it. It's about the desire for power and control, the fear of losing, narcissism, and the ability to rationalize and justify unethical behavior, which allows ruthless individuals to push forward without feeling the weight of their decisions. Ultimately, their willingness to do whatever it takes, and their ability to rationalize it, gives them the edge in high-stakes environments. The price of ruthlessness. Let's break down the different costs associated with ruthlessness and why, in the end, it might not be worth it for everyone. Number 1. Emotional and psychological toll. At the core of ruthlessness is the constant stress of maintaining control, manipulating others, and keeping up appearances. While the ruthless individual might initially feel invincible, this lifestyle takes a heavy emotional toll over time. The anxiety of having to stay one step ahead, the fear of being outwitted or overthrown, and the guilt, even if it's buried deep, of causing harm to others can lead to mental exhaustion and burnout. Psychological studies have shown that people who engage in manipulative or exploitative behaviors tend to suffer from higher levels of stress, anxiety, and depression. Over time, the weight of their actions can lead to a sense of emptiness, even if they continue to succeed professionally. Their relationships with others often become shallow or transactional, and they can end up feeling lonely or disconnected. In extreme cases, people who consistently act ruthlessly can experience personality disorders, including narcissism or sociopathy, where the line between manipulation and reality becomes blurred. They might begin to lose touch with their authentic selves, focusing solely on the mask they wear to the outside world. This sense of disconnection can erode their mental well-being over time. 2. Broken relationships and social isolation. When a person operates without regard for others' feelings or well-being, they risk creating a wake of broken relationships. Friends, family members, and colleagues will begin to notice the selfish, manipulative behaviors, and sooner or later, they will either distance themselves or turn against that individual. Ruthless people often burn bridges as they climb to the top, and these bridges are difficult, if not impossible, to rebuild. The more ruthless the individual, the fewer meaningful, supportive relationships they will have in their life. They may eventually find themselves isolated, with no one left to turn to for help or support. 3. Damage to reputation and integrity. The world is smaller and more interconnected than ever before, and it's easier for word to get out about a person's manipulative or unethical behavior. One slip-up or scandal can lead to public humiliation, job loss, or legal consequences. Even those who have played the game with ruthless tactics for years may find themselves exposed when the stakes are raised. Their lack of transparency, honesty, or empathy becomes apparent, and people begin to distrust them. A reputation for being manipulative and self-serving can tarnish their career prospects and damage their personal brand. What's worse, once your reputation is ruined, it can take years, if not decades, to rebuild it. 4. Ethical dilemmas and moral conflict. Living a life of ruthlessness requires continuously compromising on one's own morals and values. However, as time goes on, the emotional cost of these compromises can mount. People might start to feel the weight of their actions, especially if they've hurt someone who didn't deserve it, or betrayed a friend or family member. So, what can you learn from Machiavelli? Machiavelli wasn't advocating for pure cruelty. He was advocating for being able to assess a situation, understand power dynamics, and act in ways that maximize your chances of success. You don't have to be malicious or manipulative to make good decisions and outsmart your competition. Being smart is about knowing when to act, when to stay quiet, and how to turn situations to your advantage without burning bridges or hurting others. Being smart means having foresight. Think about the future consequences of your actions. Will the price you pay for success be worth it? What are you sacrificing in terms of relationships, reputation, or your own peace of mind? Understand human nature. Machiavelli's key to success was his deep understanding of human nature. People are driven by desires, fears, insecurities, and ambitions. A successful strategist, he argued, should understand these motivations and use them to their advantage. It means knowing how to influence and lead them in a way that benefits both sides. By understanding human nature, you can approach your relationships, personal and professional, with more empathy and awareness. Focus on building a strong reputation. Your reputation is one of the most valuable assets you can have. While a ruthless person might rise quickly, their reputation can just as quickly crumble when people catch on to their behavior. A good reputation is not something you can fake. It takes time to build and can be lost in a moment if you make the wrong decision. When people trust you and believe in your character, doors will open for you that otherwise wouldn't. Don't get lost in the game of power. One of the dangers of ruthlessness is that it can slowly draw you into the game of power for its own sake. You can lose sight of your true purpose, passions, and values while obsessively seeking to outdo others, win at all costs, and maintain control. This obsession with power can leave you empty and unsatisfied, as it often creates a false sense of achievement. Instead of getting lost in the power struggle, take a step back and reflect on what success really means to you. Does it mean wealth, fame, influence, or does it mean having peace of mind, strong relationships, and a sense of purpose? When you define your success by your own standards, rather than the standards of others, you can achieve more sustainable and authentic fulfillment. Take time to re-evaluate your goals regularly. Ask yourself, am I doing this because I truly want to, or because I want to prove something to others? Recognize when you're getting caught up in the game and remind yourself of the bigger picture. Recognize the value of emotional intelligence. Ruthlessness often comes from a lack of emotional intelligence. It's about focusing solely on logic, outcomes, and results while disregarding the feelings and emotions of others. But emotional intelligence is a key component of success. Understanding how people feel, managing your own emotions, and using this awareness to influence situations positively will always win in the long run, which ultimately helps you rise in both your personal and professional circles. So, what's the brutal truth about winning? The idea of winning at all costs is appealing in some ways. It promises power, control, and success. But as we've seen, the cost of ruthlessness is steep. It can lead to personal isolation, moral conflict, emotional burnout, and damaged relationships. At the same time, Machiavelli's insights into human nature and strategy can still be valuable tools for success. The key is balance. It's about being strategic, not ruthless, empathetic, not manipulative, and most importantly, true to your values while navigating the competitive world around you. Success doesn't have to come at the expense of your peace of mind or integrity. By focusing on being smart, empathetic, and strategic, you can rise to the top without losing who you are or what truly matters. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that the only way to win is by crushing others. The real winners are those who can achieve their goals with grace, authenticity, and respect for the people around them. So as you move forward in your own life, take these lessons to heart. Understand the brutal truth behind power and winning, but don't let it define you. Choose the path that allows you to thrive in all aspects of your life, emotionally, mentally, and socially, without sacrificing your integrity for the sake of success.